What's going on, guys? JSkeleton here with my ARMS review for you guys today, my friends, on the Nintendo Switch. ARMS is a game that was revealed at the same time they revealed the Nintendo Switch, and it was a game that I was a little bit on the fence on when I first seen it. It was a game I was very curious about, but I wasn't sure if it would be a game that I'd be really into. That said, the more the time passed, the more gameplay I've seen about it, the more interested I got into the game, and the more curious I was about it. But I was still not sold on it. But that said, I had still decided I was going to buy it because I am a huge Nintendo fan, and it's a brand new Nintendo IP. So it's a first-party title. It's created by Nintendo themselves. It's not by any other developer. It's created by Nintendo. And so that in and of itself kind of was a deciding factor for me that I was going to purchase it either way. That said, I still had no idea whether I would like it, how I'd feel about it, you know, how fun it would be, but it was a game that I trusted would have that Nintendo charm, and it sure does. ARMS has that Nintendo feel, it has that Nintendo look, and that Nintendo charm to it. It's no exception. That said, it's very much different than Wii Boxing or Punch-Out. A lot of people thought, you know, maybe it's similar to Punch-Out, maybe it's similar to Wii Boxing. It's its own unique game. It's creative in and of itself. It's unique to itself, and it's not really comparable to any other game, even in the fighting genre. ARMS has a lot more depth than it seems at first glance. When you first look at it, it seems like, okay, it looks pretty fun, but you don't realize how much depth there is to it. You don't realize how much skills you can actually learn from the game, that there's a huge depth that you can go from casual to competitive. It's kind of like Smash Bros. If you were to look at Smash Bros and had never played it, you'd kind of think, oh, this is a pretty cool game, you know, you have all the Nintendo characters kind of fighting, but that's all it would really seem like. Once you get hands-on with a game like Smash Bros, you realize, okay, wow, this game has a lot of depth to it, and I mean, you can really get skillful in this game. You can play casually or you can play competitively, as many people have been doing for many years now. And ARMS is the exact same way. It has a lot of depth. There's a lot of skill you can obtain from the game. You can get very good at the game if you learn how to master the moves and the techniques and different things like that. It's not an easy game by any means. Now, let's say you're just playing offline on the Grand Prix. There's different modes. We'll get into that in a second. But as far as the Grand Prix goes, there's 7 different difficulty levels. And you'd think, oh, that's not many different difficulty levels. But when I played on level 4, and I would not consider myself to be an amateur gamer. I've been gaming all my life, and I would say I'm a pretty decent gamer. But when I was playing at level 4, at first it was frustratingly challenging, which is a good thing, because you want a game that has some, you know, easy modes, and it has some really hard modes that you can really put your skills to test. And ARMS has that exact thing. My fighting style against certain characters, I was flying through them very easily, but against other characters, I was having a really hard time, and that goes a little bit more into the depth. We'll get more into the characters in just a second, but it even has enough depth to learn enough skills and get good enough to play at a competitive level, even at an esports level, kind of like we've seen at Nintendo E3 2017. As far as characters goes, there are 10 characters at the time of recording. The developers and Nintendo have already confirmed they're going to be adding new characters, stages, and different things like that through free DLC, so there will be more to come, and we're already getting an 11th character just a month after the game launched. But there's different characters with different fighting styles. For example, you got Ninjara, who's a little bit smaller, a little bit faster, if you will, and his dash ability is the ability to temporarily disappear and reappear when you dash to the side. But then you got someone like Master Mummy, who's bigger, he's slower, but he's stronger, and he packs way more of a punch. The thing is, he's slower, so you have to really time your punches. So every single character has different ways to play for different playing styles, but they're all very well balanced. That said, every character has different kinds of arms you can equip, which are light arms, medium arms, and heavy arms. Obviously, the light arms do less damage, but they're faster. The heavy arms are much slower, but they do more damage. But then the arms, even in and of themselves, have abilities, so it gets even deeper than that. You have abilities like the ability to shock your opponent, so it temporarily disables their arms so they can't throw any punches for a couple seconds. Or you have the ability to freeze your enemy temporarily with certain arms, which again, it'll freeze them temporarily so they're moving way more slowly. Or there's another one which will splash goo onto your opponent's screen so they're having a hard time to see for a short amount of time. there's so many different abilities, so many different arms, and the characters, all the combinations. I mean, there's thousands of different combinations you can come up with, and again, they're great for all kinds of playing styles. As far as game modes go and different kind of ways to play in ARMS, there's things like the Grand Prix, like I explained, which is kind of like a story-based thing. There's not a lot of story to it. We'll get to that in a second, but it's kind of like Mario Kart, where you go through a Grand Prix. You go through so many different events. You fight so many different characters in a row. At the end, you fight the big boss, if you will, and he's the final challenger. And so you have that mode. You have normal versus, offline versus, where you can play against an AI, or you can play against a friend, so that's local multiplayer. You have online party play. So online party play is more of the casual play, where you're thrown into kind of a lobby with a bunch of different people. It randomly matches you guys up together, and there's different game modes to play. There's 2 versus 2. There's obviously 1 versus 1. There's 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 1. So kind of a 4-player free-for-all. There's matches where it's 3 versus 1 in the sense that the 1 is an AI. It's a very difficult computer player that 3 real players fight against. And then you got things like volleyball, and you got things like hoops, which is kind of like a ARMS take on basketball, where you have to grapple your opponent to throw them into the hoops. Many different ways to play. But then you have online ranked play, which is more of like your standard 1v1. There's no tricks to it. It's just standard, whoever's the best fighter. And by winning in ranked play, you rank up in ranks. And if you lose ranks. But the game is very forgiving. So if you win, you rank up a lot more than you would rank down if you lose. So if you lose, you don't rank down a whole lot, but you do rank down a little bit. So that's kind of how they took their approach on ranked play. So again, ranked play is just a little bit more of a way to play competitively, a little bit more competitively online. Now, my biggest issue with the game, I've said a lot of good things so far, but my biggest issue with the game is the lack of story, like I previously mentioned. There's really not any story at all. I mean, the Grand Prix give you a little bit of story, but it's very vague, it's very shallow, and there's not a lot of story. We don't have much backstory to the characters. There's not a whole lot to go. It definitely needs story. Story needs to be added either as DLC or maybe YouTube videos where they kind of, explain the backstory of each character, give us a little bit of story in that sense of cinematics on YouTube videos or something, or, add some kind of, unlockable videos in-game, add some kind of story to the game, but we need story. We need to know why are each of these characters fighting in this tournament? What's their story? Where did they come from? Why is Master Mummy a mummy? Why did Min Min leave the noodle shop to fight in the ARMS tournament? I mean, we have so many unanswered questions. That's honestly my biggest issue with the game. That said, ARMS was a lot more fun than I expected. It has that Nintendo feel and look, like I said. The visuals and colors are really vibrant, fun, and enjoyable. The music is very pleasant and very Nintendo-like, as we would expect. The playability is a load of fun, whether you're playing alone or with friends. Obviously, it's a lot more fun with friends, but surprisingly, I had a lot of fun playing even alone, especially online, because you have that ability to play against people online, and there's different ways to play online. It really does have a lot of fun to it, because you play different kinds of people online, people that are of low or high skill sets, and it really puts your skills to the test. So I honestly think that ARMS is a lot more fun than I expected at first glance. Getting hands-on with the game is very important, because like I said earlier, when you just see it, it really doesn't do justice. You need to actually try it and play it. Now, obviously, ARMS has motion controls. That's not the only way to play, but it is the ideal way to play. The developers said that, and I personally agree with them. You do have an ability to play with button controls, whether you put your Joy-Cons in a grip, whether you play with a single Joy-Con sideways, which probably would be very difficult, or if you use the Pro Controller. I tried the Pro Controller for a while, and honestly, I don't feel like the game really, you don't get the whole experience with the game using button controls, in my opinion. You could use it if you want, but I would highly suggest trying to get accustomed to using motion controls. It's a lot more fun, and I mean, there is a little bit of a learning curve to it, but it's a lot more fun, and it just gives the game the full experience, if you will. If you really can't, I mean, obviously you do have the option to play with buttons, but motion controls is honestly where it's at, in my opinion. The motion controls are surprisingly very, very accurate and very precise. Again, it's nothing like Wii Boxing. It's very precise, and you don't have to swing your arms viciously. Just gently throwing your arms forward does enough. Like I said, ARMS is a really fun fighting game that has a load of depth, a load of playability, a load of different kind of skill levels. You can go from casual player that, you know, is just starting and it's not very good to a very, very competitive hardcore player that's playing in like esports tournaments. ARMS has that, you know, variety of depth. I think it's better than your standard fighting game. I think ARMS does have replayability though. I can still see a lot of people getting addicted to this game. I got addicted like that. My son got addicted. It's a lot of fun to play. So in conclusion, I would definitely recommend picking up ARMS. It's a great game. It has that Nintendo feel, the Nintendo charm. Nintendo definitely did not disappoint. Nintendo just, they nail everything they touch. Anything they create is just a masterpiece in my opinion, and ARMS is no exception to that. ARMS is a lot of fun to play. It definitely needs a story eventually. We need some backstory on the characters. They've confirmed that they're going to add free DLC, which includes characters, stages, game modes, and different things like that. So they're going to add free DLC. We're already getting the first free DLC character just a month after the game launches, and we're going to get more down the road. Again, ARMS is a game that you need to get hands-on to really experience it in full. Seeing it doesn't do justice. You need to get hands-on and really experience it to really understand the game. So is ARMS worth it? I would say yeah. I think it's great. If you're a Nintendo fan, I mean, it's already worth it because it has that Nintendo feel, but even above that, it's a really fun game to play, whether you're alone, whether you're with friends. It's a lot of fun, honestly. I wasn't disappointed. So if I was to give the game a rating, I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10. I was contemplating giving it a 9, but I think we need a lot more story and backstory to the character to kind of bump up that review score, in my opinion. So I would say an 8.5 out of 10. It's a great game. Definitely worth the buy in my opinion. But let me know, what do you guys think? What is your score? What would you give ARMS if you have already played it? How are you liking it if you played ARMS? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree with my review? Do you disagree? At the end of the day, a review is just my experience with the game, and your experience may differ. If you guys enjoyed it, smash the like button, subscribe to the comment, share, and all awesome stuff. I'll catch you guys in the next one like always. Until then, game on.